in online communities and has spoken at Obesity Help 2015 and WLSFA 2016. He is a member of the WLSFA Advisory Board. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. I am Bill Streetman. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. And I can hear myself well. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. I walk around a lot, so I need this microphone, otherwise I'll go crazy. I'm here today to talk about what I call my journey to fitness. I came to that terminology because of two things that I've heard people say already. One is, this is a journey. I don't have a destination in mind, I have a journey in mind. And the other thing is, I focus on fitness rather than saying my journey to skinny or my journey to small or something else. Because I realize there's a lot of folks that are trim and in good shape that aren't healthy. I mean, physically they look good, but they're not healthy. So I wanted to be healthy. So hence my journey to fitness. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, and I'm going to start with a little bit of background here. As opposed to some people who were born heavy and were heavy their whole life, as a young man, teenager, I was in great shape. I was an athlete. I ran track, as you see there, played baseball, football, basketball, any sport you could play. And I burned up so many calories doing that eating really wasn't an issue for me. I ate a lot, but I did well with it. As I grew, you can see, I don't need to go through every one of these years, but every 10 years or so, I'm adding 40 or 50 pounds on. And as I left my high school and college years and went out into the workforce and started my career, I ended up traveling a lot on airplanes. And what that meant was eating the Cinnabon at the airport at 6 in the morning, and then eating fast food when I landed in Pittsburgh, and then hopping on a plane and flying to Dallas and meeting a client and having dinner at Morton's or something. It's great. You can eat anywhere when someone else is paying the and you'll eat anything because, yes, bring me the biggest steak to have. Why would I eat a small one? Bring me the big steak. A couple of gin and tonics will go great with that. Some wine at dinner, maybe something, an after dinner drink, definitely dessert, and then straight to bed. Not a good prescription for staying healthy. And by the time 2010 came along, I was 54 years old. I weighed 404 pounds. I was pretty lucky that I didn't have a lot of comorbidities. I can never say that term. My blood pressure was rising, my blood sugar was rising, my cholesterol had just crossed from the into the high range. So I was a time bomb that was just about to explode on my health. But more apparent to me was the things that I was having to give up by being too big or being not fit enough. Most embarrassing things in my life, not being able to fit on an airplane seat and having to ask for the seatbelt extender. I know people understand that one. My wife and I, with another couple, went to New York City. We were going to go to some plays. I don't know if you've been to Broadway, but the seats in those old theaters are about that wide, that deep. I could occupy 3 of them. So not only couldn't I fit in it, the people on either side of me wouldn't have been able to enjoy the show either. So I ended up watching the plays from the wings, standing in the back. Very embarrassing, one of the lowest parts of my life. And another one, big business meeting. I said, I'll meet you at the restaurant. And I come in and everybody's sitting in a booth that I couldn't fit in. And to make the whole dinner party stand up and move over to a table to accommodate me. Those were the kind of those were my rock bottoms. Those were the things that pushed me to decide I had to do something. And that something, when it came a year later, I had lost 202 pounds, half my body weight. And I thought it was kind of cool that I had did exactly 50%. Thank you. And not only that, but physically, that cholesterol level had dropped. The blood sugar was fine. The blood pressure was fine. I had ran a 5K. Actually, I had run 2 5Ks. I took a flight to Korea to see my son, and I got stuck in the center seat, and boy did I panic. I was going to change planes. I was going to delay it. Got on board, and I could sit with my arms between the armrests. I thought, this is great. I'm in the center seat. And there's so many good things like that that happen. Fitting into Heck, just getting in the back seat of a car. Anybody that's been 400 pounds or more knows what I'm talking about. You can't fit in the back seat of a
Everybody always
car.
gives you the front seat.
So this is the back seat. It was great. And for 6 years since then, I've been able to maintain that weight loss. And in some ways, I got down to 202. I weigh about 220 right now. It's not regain. It's that I intentionally, actually I went down to 180 pounds because I didn't like the way I looked at 202. I was drawn and my eyes were sunk in, my cheeks were hollow. So I lost a little bit more weight and then started aggressively lifting weights and doing resistance training and put about 25, 30 pounds of muscle mass on, which has really improved my general being and the feeling of fitness and all that. And I think it actually makes me look a lot better than I did even at 180. So while people say, it's not regain, it's planned, purposeful control and management of my body. So today, I love to tell this story. Obviously, it's people always thank you for showing up and talking, and you say, wait a minute, you're giving me 45 minutes to talk about myself? That's the ultimate in the ego's pleasure there. But I like it because it's therapy for me, and I think if there's anything, and specifically I'm going to talk about the process I went through and the way I approached weight loss through my weight loss surgery, that there's some lessons that can be learned and shared, and people could take what I've experienced and maybe even improve on it. And because there are a lot of people, as it says, fails miserably at this. And I feel very, very bad for them because I know the feeling of desperation and I know the feeling of extreme joy that my new life, my new lifestyle has delivered for me. And I want that for everybody. And specifically people 55 and over. I was 54 when I had the surgery. And a lot of folks that are, and I see people give up. They're 60 years old and they weigh 400 pounds and they just figure, I'm just going to die. I accept that. And that is so sad because there was so much of life to go out there and capture. Why did it work for me? Well, I say there's two reasons that it worked for me. One was the general approach that I took. And I'm going to call it a project management approach, and I'll explain that in a second. The second thing is, and I think this is so, so important, especially in the head, weight loss surgery is not the reason I lost weight, nor the reason I keep it off. It's a tool, it's a great tool, it's a tool, an invaluable tool that I use to lose weight. And I think that, as we go through this and we look at that mentality, you're going to see how important that is. My project management approach. Okay, I was a business consultant for 34 years, specifically with gas and electric utilities. And they would come to me and they'd say, Bill, here's the way things are and here's what we'd like. Well, that's a perfect definition of a project. You want to take something from someplace and put it in another place. You tell me a time frame, you tell me a budget, you tell me the resources I have to work with, the specific goals, bingo, we have a project. And I excelled at doing that. And my way of doing it was, and I won't go through this whole thing, but basically you're creating a project, you're coming around, you're identifying the barriers to achieving success in that, and eventually along the way you kind of compare your results against your expectation. And if you're not where you think you need to be or you plan to be, you either realize your plan was flawed and you can adjust your plan, or you realize your implementation is flawed and you can adjust your implementation. But having a goal, having a plan, was very important to me. I always had something to measure against. I know some people, they ask this question a lot. Do you weigh yourself every day or only once a week? I weigh myself every day. It was my method of always knowing where I am, when I am, why I am, and then being able to make adjustments. That's what worked for me. But as opposed to getting through this, which is really more an academic study of project management, and we're not here for that, we just talk about how I applied those things to me. First, I always say that picture there when I was 24 was one of my favorite. I call it my Robert Redford picture.
He does too.
I felt pretty good about myself back then.
It was the 70s.
And when I was 404 pounds, I did not feel very good about myself at all. So the gap I saw, I wanted to close this gap between what I wanted and what I had. And as any project manager will tell you, a project generally is set up to achieve a goal and then to allow for the continuation of that in a steady, predictable, method, or like I say here, establish a long-term lifestyle practices. So I wanted to achieve a certain goal, and then the second goal was to make that permanent. So, numbers, they say you need to have a specific goal. This was not, and as the doctor mentioned earlier, a lot of times, and my doctor, he may have had a goal for me, I don't know, I didn't ask him. It really didn't matter because I had already come to the conclusion that I'm the one that's going to make this happen. The doctor's going to give me a good surgery, I hope, and then I'm going to take that tool and work. So my goal was to lose 200 pounds in 1 to 2 years. And then from 2 years on was to maintain this healthy lifestyle. Very simple. The goal part was easy. But the third part of this project management approach is to go out and do your research. So the first thing I wanted to know was, how do you lose weight? Which I found out I already knew, and everybody knows. It's really simple math that we learned in first grade. It's weight loss math. You add the calories you bring into your body, you subtract the calories that you burn up, both metabolically, the stuff to breathe and pump the blood through your veins and all that, and then any other additional exercise that you get. And if that result is negative, if you have a deficit of calories, you're going to lose weight. If you have a surplus of calories, you're going to gain weight. And when I thought about that, like I said, I learned that in first grade. And secretly, we all know what causes weight loss and weight gain. So that part was pretty easy, and I kind of summed it up with the statement, eat well and exercise. Take that big, long formula and boil it down to one thing. Then I thought about, well, how does this eating well and exercising thing work? And if that's the root cause of gaining and losing weight, what are the components of it? And this was kind of important to me because for every one of these things, there was sort of the antidote to it over here, related to eating and managing my calorie intake. Some people, sometimes I ate too much, big volume, or too fast. Sometimes it was the quality of what I was eating. You know, the McDonald's shake instead of water, something like that. Lifestyle, eating at the wrong times, wrong places. Psychology, emotional eating issues, and so on. And the physiology. I know people with high blood pressure and blood sugar sometimes can't eat, or they have exercise issues because of arthritis or other physical issues. And then on the calorie burn side, really same thing. Sometimes you're just too big to exercise. I mean, I was this big, you can't fit in some of those machines at the workout center. The knowledge or experience of how to work out, and then the motivation. For me, when I looked at it, I kind of applied these in the following manner. I said, about half of my problem is I don't have an off switch. I just keep eating. It wasn't built in. Some people have it, I don't. If that's a fault of mine, so be it. That was my issue, biggest issue. And then the lifestyle things, talking about traveling around in the airport and all that, I ate the wrong foods at the wrong time. But you can see I put about 90% of my problem into that category. Now it's hard to self-assess things sometimes, but that's what I came up with. And on the exercise side, as you know, when I was a younger man, I exercised a lot, so the knowledge of what to do was there. I wasn't motivated, and I certainly, physically, I was kind of limited. But all of these things come down to a couple of things. Education, learning, or analysis, maybe if you're in counseling, and then putting those things into practice until they become lifestyle habits. With one exception, and that was the volume eating, some sort of physical restriction. And since I couldn't pay a man to stand next to me and slap my hand every time I ate, I couldn't afford that. I thought, well, that's my biggest problem. When my sister introduced me to the concept of weight loss surgery, I thought, I'll just do it. I'll just eat just this much food at a couple of meals a day. It'll be simple. Whoa, is that a pizza?
Right.
I'm going to start this tomorrow. And that idea, out the door, eat the pizza. And of course, the next morning it was something else, and the next day it was, and then you forget about it. And a month and a half later, you say, I'm miserable. So for me, anything that focused on that physical restriction, which is the reason I looked into gastric bypass. So the fourth part of that project management, after I've done the research and to understand how I'm going to achieve my goals and close that gap, was to put a plan together. And for me, the plan became the Roux-en-Y, gastric bypass. And I don't have to, we've had people far more educated and knowledgeable than me talk about that. after gastric bypass performed. But before I was going under the knife, because it's me, I thought I'm going to do some research and find out that people, hundreds of thousands of people have had this procedure. Some I know it's worked for, some it hasn't. I thought, well, I'm going to go to the internet, the source of all knowledge, right? And I'm going to find out exactly what the people who were successful did, because there's got to be some secrets in there of what made it easy. I put in the little search string and hit, instantly came the returns in 0.2 seconds, and I clicked on the first one. I was so excited, and I started to read, and I read, successful patients manage what they eat. Oh, okay, let's keep going. They drank water. They took multiple vitamins. They got 7 hours of sleep a night. They exercised regularly, and the worst of all, they took personal responsibility for their own actions. Oh my God! No,
I know, that's
please
the
don't tell me
happened for
that
me.
it's all in my
It's my
hands.
fault.
What I'm
Oh
going
my
to do.
Yeah, nobody likes
When I found out that the idea of weight loss and weight management, a healthy lifestyle, really is simple. It's just not easy. It's the equivalent of if you bring an alcoholic in front of me, I can give you the simple answer to your problem right now. Stop drinking. Done. Oh, you say it's not that easy to do. Ah, okay, same story. Why is that? Well, I went to Webster to find out, and it's so obvious when I looked at this. According to Webster, simple means not complicated. 1 + 1 is 2, minus 2 is 0. It's simple math. You're right. It's easy to understand. We all got that one. I just said it. It's not elaborate. It's pretty straightforward. That's a good definition of simple. Here is why weight loss, kicking alcohol, kicking gambling, kicking anything like that is so difficult, because the definition of easy says capable of being accomplished and acquired with ease. And we all know how simple it is to just lose 200 pounds, right? Well, it was no difficulty. It requires little effort. Well, obviously this is just not the case, and that's what I really wanted, was not to find a way to make weight loss simple. It really is simple. I wanted to find a way to make it easier. So I went into my 5th step of my project management thing. I had this great plan. I'm going to have gastric bypass. I'm going to eat well and exercise. I have goals. But I've had projects. In fact, I've run thousands of projects in my work life. And I've been told by some clients, Bill, you're the best client, you're the best project manager we've ever had. That's nice to hear. And I think I probably hit well enough to get into the Hall of Fame, but remember, even that, you only get like 3 hits out every time, 10 times at bat. So, I've also been told, you're the worst project manager we've ever had. Right before I was fired, I was told. And they say you learn more from your failures than from your successes. So I took all these failures, well, the few that I had, and I laid them out, and I started saying, what was it that went wrong? And I started listing the problems. And I found about 12 things that came up. But 4 of them were basically on every time I've ever failed at managing a project, these 4 came up. Well, I thought, maybe if I focus on those 4 and try to find strategies to overcome these potential barriers, it's going to increase my chance of success. So, having done that, the first one I found, anytime I fail, it's always because I allowed conflicting priorities. I had, to put it in my work life, I tell somebody, yes, I will be in Pittsburgh on Friday. No problem, we'll set the meeting up. Forget, or remembering, but not wanting to remember that I also told my family I'd be going to the basketball game, or I told another office that I'd be available for a meeting, or I told my boss the budget would be in on time, or something. Can't fit 2 pegs into one hole, made for one peg. Dishonesty. I don't mean I'm a congenital liar or anything like that, but I mean dishonesty mostly with myself. Again, it comes down when the boss says, hey, are you going to have that budget ready Friday? You say, yeah, no problem, sir. And then you realize, I don't know how I'm going to do that. When being honest would have been the best thing, and the first thing to say, I don't know if I can. Well, we do this a lot, even regarding our weight. I can't tell you how many times I found ways to go through the buffet line at a wedding without anybody knowing this was my 2nd, 3rd, or 4th time through. Now, seriously, if you see me go through the buffet line the 2nd time, you might go, oh, he's hungry. But what you think about me doesn't really matter. The truth is, I was lying to myself, not to you. I didn't want you to not know I was going through for the 2nd or 3rd time. I didn't want me to know I was going through for the 2nd or 3rd time. it's those kind of, I say lies because I'm being blunt about it, but it's those kind of deceptions, it's those kinds of trickeries that you play in your mind that'll get you in a bad way. Poor planning and implementation. You know, I said, when I knew where I was supposed to be, I could always measure my results against it. Well, if you don't have a good plan, you can't do that. And often I would rush into things, not do the 80-20 rule, you know, spending 80% of my time up in front preparing and getting everything set up so that I can implement